Have you ever dreamed of spending your golden years close to your children, helping raise grandkids, and enjoying daily family moments? While this vision sounds idyllic, what if I told you that living near your children as you age could lead to unexpected challenges? In this video, we'll explore the hidden drawbacks of cohabiting with your adult children and share real-life stories that might change the way you think about your retirement plans. Stay tuned until the end to discover essential tips that could help you create a more fulfilling and independent golden age for yourself and your family. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me. And if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Number 1, you may become a burden. One of the most common and deeply emotional concerns people face as they grow older is the fear of becoming a burden to their children. It's a fear that, for many, feels almost inevitable. As we age, the need for support increases physically, emotionally, and sometimes even financially. The difficult truth is that, while our children might initially be more than willing to help, over time, the reality of caregiving can become overwhelming, even if they never say it out loud. There are countless stories from elderly parents who, with the best of intentions, decided to move closer to their children, believing that being nearby would create more opportunities to connect, bond, and help. However, these same parents later found themselves feeling like they were asking for too much, like they had become more of a weight than a blessing. Take a moment to think about the stage of life your children are in. Most likely they're at the peak of their careers, working tirelessly to advance in their jobs while managing their households. They may also be raising young children and navigating the chaotic and demanding role of being both a parent and a professional. Their schedules are already stretched thin, with barely enough time for themselves, let alone adding the additional responsibility of caring for a parent. When you, as a parent, move closer to them, even though your heart is in the right place because you want to be part of their lives, maybe even help them with the grandchildren, it can sometimes lead to an unspoken pressure on them. A pressure they may not even fully recognize themselves, but one that weighs heavily over time. This unintentional shift in dynamics can cause emotional strain. You might not notice it immediately, but gradually, as your needs increase, whether it's help with daily tasks, medical appointments, or just the comfort of their company, you may sense a subtle change. They might start visiting less often or seem more stressed when they do. It's not that they don't love you, of course they do. Their love hasn't changed, but the proximity has blurred the lines between parent and child in ways neither of you expected. Your presence, once welcomed with excitement, can begin to feel like an additional responsibility they hadn't prepared for. And this is where the heartache sets in, the realization that, despite your best intentions, you've become a source of stress rather than support. One story that stuck with me was from a woman who shared her experience on Reddit. She explained, "I moved closer to my daughter because I wanted to be part of her life and help with my grandchildren. But slowly I realized I was asking for too much help myself. I became a burden to her, even though she never said it. It broke my heart, and now I feel stuck." Her words are haunting, aren't they? The pain of feeling like you've overstepped, like your desire to help has backfired, leaving you in a position where you feel both unwanted and unable to leave. It's an all too common scenario that many elderly parents face, and it's heartbreaking because no one wants to feel like a burden to the people they love most. The truth is, this doesn't happen because your children don't love you or don't care. They do. But proximity, while it may seem like a blessing at first, often creates a dependency that neither party anticipates. As a parent, you may begin to rely on your children for things you never thought you would, whether it's small favors, like help with groceries, or bigger needs, like daily care. And your children, no matter how much they love you, might start to feel the weight of these new responsibilities creeping into their already busy lives. They might feel torn between wanting to be there for you and needing to take care of their own immediate family, careers, and personal well-being. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. It's important to acknowledge that living independently, for as long as you can, is not just about preserving your dignity or maintaining your autonomy. It's also about protecting the relationship you have with your children. When you can live independently, it allows your relationship with your children to be one of love and support without the strain of unspoken obligations. It gives them the freedom to visit you because they want to, not because they feel like they have to. It allows you to maintain a sense of pride in knowing that you're not adding to their already full plates. In many ways, it preserves the respect and admiration that is so important in parent-child relationships. It's a difficult balance to strike, though, isn't it? On one hand, you want to be close to your children, to share in their lives, to see your grandchildren grow up. You want to be involved, to offer your wisdom, your love, and your support. But on the other hand, you don't want to be the reason they feel stressed or overwhelmed. You don't want to be the source of their anxiety when they already have so much to manage. This balancing act can be emotionally taxing, especially when all you want is to be part of their lives without feeling like a burden. Perhaps the greatest gift you can give your children, as you age, is the gift of your independence. By living on your own for as long as possible, you give them the space to live their lives without the added worry of having to take care of you. You protect your relationship from the unspoken resentment that can arise when proximity leads to dependency. You allow them to thrive in their own lives while still knowing that you love and support them, even from a distance. In the end, it's not just about where you live or how close you are to your children. It's about the quality of the relationship you share with them. Living independently doesn't mean you're cutting ties or pushing them away. It means you're giving them the freedom to be your children, not your caregivers. It means you're allowing your relationship to be one of mutual respect and love, without the added burden of caregiving. And that, perhaps, is the most loving thing you can do for them. 2. Loss of independence and identity. Moving closer to your children, while often done out of love or practicality, can sometimes unintentionally strip away the independence that you've worked so hard to maintain throughout your life. It's a subtle shift, one that may happen without you even realizing it at first. When you're physically close to family, it becomes so easy to rely on them for things you used to do on your own, small things like transportation, running errands, or even making everyday decisions. This reliance, while convenient, can slowly start to erode the sense of self-sufficiency that has likely been a core part of your identity for most of your life. Let me share a story that highlights this point. There was a man who, with the best intentions, decided to move next door to his son and daughter-in-law. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect arrangement. He could be close to family, and they could easily check in on him. He thought it would be convenient, allowing him to maintain his independence while still having his loved ones nearby for support. But within a few months, things began to change in ways he hadn't anticipated. Little by little, he found himself relying on his son for what started as small favors, picking up groceries, giving him a ride to appointments, or even just helping out around the house. These were things he had always done on his own, but now, with family so close, it became easier to ask for help than to do them himself. At first, it seemed harmless. Why not ask for help when it was so easily available? But over time, he began to notice a shift in himself. He started to lose the confidence to take care of things on his own. The once simple tasks he used to handle with ease now felt daunting. He shared his feelings, admitting, "I feel like I've lost the confidence to do things by myself. My life has started revolving around them, and I've forgotten how to live by myself." Can you imagine the sadness and frustration that must come with that realization? To feel like you've slowly lost the essence of who you are, not because you wanted to, but because it just happened. The truth is, this isn't just about convenience, it's about identity. We often don't realize how much of our sense of self is tied to our ability to make our own decisions, to take care of ourselves, to be independent. When we start leaning on others more and more, even for the little things, it can start to chip away at that sense of independence, and with it, our identity can begin to blur. The things that once gave us purpose, like taking care of our homes, managing our errands, or simply making decisions for ourselves, start to fade into the background, leaving us feeling less like ourselves. Living further away from your children, though it may seem less convenient, can be a blessing in disguise. It forces you to stay active, both mentally and physically. You're more likely to keep doing things for yourself because there's no one immediately nearby to do them for you. This self-reliance helps preserve not only your independence but also your identity. By continuing to manage your own life, you maintain the sense of control that is so vital to feeling fulfilled and capable as we age. It's not just about adding years to your life, it's about adding life to your years, keeping your mind sharp and your body engaged in the everyday tasks that give us purpose and structure. Think about it. When you're actively participating in your own life, you're giving yourself the best chance to stay healthy and vibrant. You're keeping your mind challenged by solving problems and making decisions. You're keeping your body active by staying physically engaged with the world around you. And perhaps most importantly, you're holding on to the person you've always been, the independent, capable individual who knows how to navigate life on their terms. Yes, there will always be times when you need help, and there's no shame in that. But when help becomes a habit and reliance becomes routine, that's when you start to lose the spark that makes you, you. It's not just about getting from one day to the next, it's about living a life that still feels like your life, not one that revolves around others. Maintaining your independence, even when it's more challenging, is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. It allows you to keep your sense of self intact, to remain confident in your abilities, and to continue living with purpose and pride. So, before you decide to move closer to family, think about what it might cost you, not just in terms of logistics, but in terms of who you are and who you want to continue to be. Sometimes, the best way to love your family is from a distance, where you can remain independent and strong, while still cherishing the time you spend together when it's meaningful and on your terms. In the end, independence isn't just about physical ability, it's about mental and emotional well-being too. It's about feeling like you're still in control of your own life, still capable, still you. And that's something worth fighting for, even as we grow older. 3. Strained relationships. While the idea of living near your children may seem like a perfect way to strengthen family bonds, it often has the opposite effect. The proximity, which you might imagine would bring you closer together, can sometimes highlight the very differences that keep you apart. It's easy to think that just because you're family, you'll naturally get along all the time. But the reality is, that living too close can magnify even the smallest tensions. Every little disagreement and every minor issue can feel amplified when there's no physical distance to offer breathing room. Many older parents have shared their experiences of how living too close to their adult children reverts the relationship to a parent-child dynamic, one where advice and opinions are given freely even when they're not wanted. It's a dynamic that, as adults, your children might not appreciate anymore. After all, they've spent years building their own lives, making their own choices, and navigating the world on their terms. When a parent suddenly lives nearby, it can feel like an uninvited return to a time when they had to answer to someone else's advice or judgment. Even when that advice comes from a place of love and concern, it can easily be perceived as meddling, and that can drive a wedge between you and your children. One mother's story that I came across on a forum stuck with me. She explained, "I thought living next to my son would mean we'd have more quality time, but instead, it's like I'm always in his way. I give my opinion too much, which he doesn't appreciate. It's driving a wedge between us." Her words reveal the heartache of a parent who wanted nothing more than to be close to her child, only to feel like she was becoming an obstacle in his life. She wasn't trying to interfere, but her presence and her well-meaning advice were taken that way, causing tension that she never intended. This is the tragic irony of living too close. What you intend as support and involvement can be seen as interference. And once that perception takes hold, it's hard to undo. What's more, when you're living nearby, it can feel like there's no escape from these tensions. Small disagreements, which might have blown over if you lived farther apart, now feel ever present because there's no space to cool off, no time to reflect, no opportunity to miss each other and appreciate the relationship from a distance. Every visit and every interaction carries the weight of unresolved feelings, and instead of nurturing the relationship, it starts to fray. The closeness that was supposed to bring you together ends up pushing you further apart. On the other hand, when there's a bit of distance between you and your children, your interactions become much more intentional. You're not popping over for small talk or quick visits that can turn awkward or contentious. Instead, you're seeing each other on purpose for meaningful visits where both sides have the space to breathe, reflect, and grow individually. When you live farther away, your time together becomes precious rather than routine. And there's a sense of balance that's harder to achieve when you're just a few doors down. The space gives both parties the freedom to live their own lives independently, which can enhance the relationship. Your children don't feel like you're constantly watching or offering unsolicited advice, and you don't feel like you're being ignored or unappreciated. The relationship, instead of being strained by proximity, becomes strengthened by the healthy space that allows both of you to flourish in your own right. You get to be a parent, but also an individual, and your children get to be adults without feeling like they're constantly under the microscope of parental concern. Distance also gives both sides time to miss each other, to reflect on the value of the relationship, and to approach each other with fresh perspectives. You're no longer just the parent who lives next door, always there to offer advice or help. Instead, you become the parent they look forward to visiting, whose presence is cherished because it's not constant. That bit of space helps preserve the mutual respect and love that can sometimes get lost when you're too close. The emotional strain of feeling like you're in each other's space all the time can wear down even the most loving relationships. It's not that your children don't love you or that you don't want the best for them, but when proximity turns into constant involvement, it can feel suffocating for both parties. Living farther away gives everyone room to breathe, room to think, and room to appreciate the moments when you do come together. It turns interactions from something routine into something special. So, before deciding to move closer to your children, consider the impact it might have on your relationship. It's not always about physical distance, it's about emotional space too. Sometimes, the best way to nurture your relationship with your children is by giving them the room to live their own lives, while still being a cherished part of it. That balance can be difficult to find when you're living right next door. But it's much easier when there's a bit of distance, allowing both you and your children to grow individually, while still loving and supporting each other deeply. In the end, proximity doesn't always equal closeness. Sometimes, a little distance can be the key to maintaining a healthy, loving relationship where both parties feel respected and valued. It's about finding that balance, about offering support without intruding, about being there for your children without being in their way. And that balance, more than anything, is what helps preserve the bond you've spent a lifetime building. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. Fourth, limited social life in isolation. One of the most surprising and paradoxical outcomes of moving closer to your family is the unexpected sense of loneliness that can follow. You might assume that being physically close to your children will naturally lead to more time spent together, more family gatherings, outings, and shared moments of companionship. After all, you're nearby, and it seems like you'll be more involved in their day-to-day lives. But all too often, the opposite happens. When you rely too much on your children for companionship or social interaction, you might find yourself unintentionally drifting away from other sources of connection: your friends, your community, and even your sense of purpose. There's a story I came across that illustrates this situation. A woman shared her experience of moving closer to her son, Filled with excitement about the thought of being included in more family gatherings, outings, and social activities, she uprooted her life, leaving behind a close-knit group of friends and a community she loved. All with the expectation that her new life near her son would be full of togetherness and inclusion. But as she soon discovered, her son's life was far busier than she had anticipated. She explained, "I had uprooted my life, left behind friends and my community, thinking I'd be part of my son's daily life. But he's so busy, and I've ended up feeling more isolated than ever. Can you imagine the emotional toll that must have taken? To leave behind everything familiar, believing you were stepping into a new chapter of closeness and belonging, only to realize that you're more alone than before." This is an all too common experience for many older adults. Moving closer to your children often comes with the assumption that you'll be more involved in their lives. But the reality is that your children are likely juggling hectic schedules, careers, and their own families. They love you, of course, but they may not have as much time to spend with you as you hoped. As a result, you might find yourself spending more time alone, waiting for those moments of connection that don't happen as often as you'd like. The problem is that when you rely too heavily on your children for social interaction, you can unintentionally neglect to build or maintain your own social life. Maybe you think, "I'll spend more time with my family, so I don't need to make as much effort to meet new people." But this kind of thinking can lead to bias. You might find yourself sitting at home, waiting for a phone call or a visit that doesn't come as often as you need. And without the friends and community you once had, the loneliness deepens. Living independently, on the other hand, can help prevent this sense of isolation. When you're on your own, you're more likely to seek out social activities, join clubs or groups, and build relationships outside of your family. You might be more motivated to attend community events, meet new people, or reconnect with old friends because you recognize the importance of staying socially active. This kind of engagement not only keeps you connected to the world around you, but also adds a sense of vibrancy and purpose to your life. It gives you something to look forward to, something that's yours, independent of your children. Building and maintaining these kinds of relationships outside of your family is crucial for your well-being. Friendships with peers who share your interests and experiences can be incredibly fulfilling. They give you a sense of belonging that's different from what your family can offer, and they provide a kind of support that's often more reliable because it's built on mutual understanding and shared experiences. These relationships allow you to maintain your independence while still feeling connected to others, and they help you avoid the trap of relying solely on your children for companionship. Imagine the difference it makes to have a vibrant social life that you control. Instead of waiting for your children to have time for you, you're out there living your life, attending book clubs, going for walks with friends, volunteering, or simply enjoying the company of others who, like you, understand the importance of staying connected and engaged. This doesn't mean you love your children any less or that you don't want to spend time with them. It simply means you're giving yourself the gift of a full and balanced life, one that includes your family but isn't entirely dependent on them. When you have a strong network of friends and peers, it takes the pressure off your children too. They don't feel like they're your only source of social interaction, which can relieve any unspoken guilt or obligation they might feel. Instead of worrying that you're lonely or isolated, they can enjoy their time with you, knowing that you have a full life outside of your relationship with them. This can make your time together even more meaningful because it's not burdened by feelings of dependency or isolation. Ultimately, it's about creating a life that's rich with connections both with your family and with others who can provide the kind of companionship that keeps you engaged with the world. Moving closer to your children can seem like the best way to stay connected, but without maintaining your friendships and community, it can lead to a deeper sense of isolation than you ever imagined. In the end, it's vital to recognize that your social life, your sense of purpose, and your connection to the world don't have to revolve entirely around your children. Building relationships outside of your family, staying socially active, and seeking out new experiences are all ways to enrich your life and hold on to the independence that's so important as we age. The more vibrant and full your own life is, the more you'll be able to bring to your relationship with your children, creating a dynamic that's based on mutual respect, love, and independence rather than dependence or isolation. 5. Guilt and obligation on both sides. When parents move near their children, it's often with the hope of fostering closer relationships, but this proximity can sometimes lead to a heavy and unspoken sense of guilt on both sides. As a parent, you may find yourself feeling guilty every time you need to ask for help. Whether it's something as simple as a ride to a doctor's appointment or assistance with household chores, there's often that lingering feeling of being a burden. Even if your children are more than willing to help, you can't shake the guilt that comes with feeling like you're asking for too much or intruding on their already busy lives. On the other side of this equation, your children may feel an equally overwhelming sense of guilt when they can't be there for you as often as they'd like. Life, especially during the peak years of career building and raising a family, can be incredibly hectic. There are deadlines to meet, children's activities to manage, and personal lives to maintain. Even though they love you deeply, the reality is they simply may not have the time to visit or help as much as you need. This can lead to a painful internal conflict for them, wanting to be a good, supportive child but also needing to prioritize their own lives. I once read a heartbreaking story from a woman who was caught in this very dilemma. She shared, "Every time I couldn't help them, I felt guilty, but I also felt resentment building up because I wanted to focus on my career and kids, her words highlight the emotional complexity of this situation. On one hand, she deeply cared for her aging parents, who lived just down the street. On the other hand, the constant tug between her responsibilities to her parents and her desire to focus on her career and children left her feeling torn. The guilt weighed heavily on her, and over time, it gave way to feelings of frustration and even resentment. Can you imagine how exhausting that must feel, to be pulled in two directions, feeling like no matter what you choose, you're letting someone down? For parents, this creates a no-win situation. You don't want to ask for too much help, but when you do, you feel guilty. And when your children aren't able to offer the help or visits you need, they feel guilty too. This constant emotional back and forth can strain even the most loving relationships. The unspoken expectations, whether it's the expectation that your children will visit more often, or the expectation that you will manage more on your own, create an environment of tension. It's a situation where neither side can fully relax, because there's always that underlying current of guilt, an obligation hanging over every interaction. Then there's the emotional strain of feeling like you're in the way, a feeling that can quietly creep in as time passes. Even if your children never say it out loud, you might start to sense that your presence is more of an obligation than a joy. This can be especially true if you find yourself asking for help more often than you'd like, or if your children seem increasingly stressed when they visit. No parent wants to feel like they're a source of stress or an added burden to their child's life, but proximity can sometimes magnify these feelings, leaving you questioning whether your decision to live so close was the right one after all. Living independently, however, can help ease much of this tension. When you maintain your own space, your routine, and your sense of autonomy, that constant push and pull of guilt begins to fade. You don't feel guilty asking for help because those requests are fewer and farther between. And your children don't feel guilty for not being able to visit as often because there's less pressure to meet those unspoken expectations. The visits that do happen, in this case, are filled with more joy, more intentionality, and less emotional baggage. When your children visit, they do so because they want to, not because they feel obligated. And because you're living independently, you can feel a sense of pride and self-assurance in knowing that your life doesn't revolve around waiting for those visits or relying on their help. It's a healthier dynamic for everyone involved, one that's based on mutual respect rather than guilt. When the sense of obligation is removed, the quality of your interactions improves. Your children can come to you as adults visiting a fellow adult, rather than feeling like caregivers coming to check on their parent. There's a sense of mutual appreciation, and each visit feels more special and more meaningful. Without the constant weight of guilt and obligation hanging over your relationship, you can enjoy your time together for what it is, a moment of connection, love, and respect rather than a ticking clock of unfulfilled expectations. This shift in dynamic not only preserves your relationship but enhances it. By maintaining your independence, you allow your children the freedom to live their own lives without the added emotional strain of feeling like they're not doing enough. And in turn, you get to maintain the dignity and pride that comes with knowing you're still in control of your own life. There's less pressure, less guilt, and more room for authentic connection. So before deciding to live near your children, consider the potential emotional toll it might take. Sometimes the physical distance allows for emotional closeness because it creates space for both parties to breathe, to live their lives, and to come together when the time is right. When visits become cherished moments rather than obligations, and when help is given freely rather than out of guilt, the relationship grows stronger, not weaker. In the end, the love between you and your children isn't measured by how close you live to one another. It's measured by the quality of your interactions, the respect you show for each other's independence, and the joy you share when you come together. And sometimes, maintaining that love means creating a bit of space so that guilt and obligation don't overshadow the beautiful bond you've built over a lifetime. 6. You risk missing out on new experiences. When you decide to live near your children, it can seem like the safest and most sensible choice, especially as you enter retirement or face the uncertainties that come with aging. There's a comforting sense of security that comes from being close to family, knowing that they're just a short drive away if you need them. But this very comfort can sometimes become a double-edged sword. While it may offer peace of mind, it can also limit your willingness to explore new places, meet different people, or engage in experiences that could bring fresh and exciting energy to your life. The truth is, when you settle close to family, it's easy to fall into routines. You might begin to structure your life around your children and their schedules, which can unintentionally trap you in a comfort zone. This comfort zone, while reassuring, might also rob you of the chance to live more fully, step outside, and embrace new adventures that can enrich your retirement years. Think about all the places you've dreamed of visiting, the hobbies you've always wanted to try, or the cultures you've wanted to immerse yourself in. When you tether yourself too closely to family, you may inadvertently put those dreams on hold, thinking, there will be time later, or I'll get to that eventually, but sometimes later never comes, and those opportunities slip by. There's a story that captures this beautifully, a man who, after retiring, chose to move to a different state rather than settle near his children. At first, his daughter was disappointed by his decision, but he knew that this was a chance for him to create a new chapter in his life. one that was all his own. He shared, "My daughter was disappointed, but moving to a new city has brought me so much joy. I joined local clubs, made new friends, and found a community that shares my interests. I would have never done this if I had stayed close to my kids. Now, when they visit, I feel like I'm showing them my new vibrant life rather than just being part of theirs." His story is a powerful reminder that sometimes taking the road less traveled leads to incredible personal growth and fulfillment. By choosing not to settle near his children, this man allowed himself the freedom to explore a new city, meet people he might never have crossed paths with, and build a life that was rich with new experiences. His decision not only benefited him but also transformed his relationship with his children. Instead of being a passive part of their lives, waiting for them to include him in their routines, he became someone with a full and vibrant life of his own, someone they were excited to visit, hear stories from, and learn from. His children didn't just come to see their dad, they came to witness a life that was still evolving, still full of passion and curiosity. What a gift that must be for them to see their parent not just aging, but thriving. Choosing a different path for your retirement, whether it's traveling the world, relocating to a new city, or even moving into a vibrant retirement community, can provide you with a wealth of experiences that keep you engaged with life. These are the years when you have the opportunity to rewrite your story, to create new adventures that are uniquely yours. Imagine the joy of waking up in a new place, where every day holds the promise of discovery. Whether it's learning a new language, tasting unfamiliar foods, or simply walking through streets that hold stories and histories different from your own, there's a sense of excitement that comes from venturing beyond the familiar. And it's not just about the physical places you visit, it's about the people you meet and the connections you make. Living near family often means socializing within familiar circles, but moving to a new environment opens up the possibility of meeting people from all walks of life. These new friendships can offer fresh perspectives, diverse conversations, and shared interests that you may never have explored before. Imagine joining a local book club, discovering a passion for hiking with a new group of friends, or volunteering for causes that resonate deeply with you. These activities not only keep you physically and mentally active, but they also give you a renewed sense of purpose and sense. Staying near family can sometimes make you feel like you're living in their world, your days revolving around their schedules, their plans, and their lives. While there's nothing wrong with being close to your children, it's essential to ask yourself, are you living your own life, or are you becoming a supporting character in theirs? By choosing to step out of that comfort zone and embrace new experiences, you allow yourself to be the author of your own story, to create a life that is rich with your adventures, discoveries, and joys. This doesn't mean you're abandoning your family or that you'll see them any less. The opposite may be true. When you create a fulfilling life for yourself, your visits with family become more special and more meaningful. Instead of feeling like you're just fitting into their lives, you'll have stories to share, experiences to recount, and a vibrant life to show them. Your relationship with your children can grow deeper and more enriching because it's not built on proximity or routine, but on mutual respect for the lives you've both created. Living independently, or even choosing to relocate to a new and unfamiliar place, can reignite that sense of curiosity and adventure that sometimes fades as we age. You'll find that there's so much more to see, to learn, and to experience, no matter what stage of life you're in. These experiences will not only keep you mentally and physically engaged, but also emotionally fulfilled, giving you a renewed appreciation for life's endless possibilities. In the end, the decision to stay near family or to venture out on your own is deeply personal. But remember, life is full of chapters, and each one deserves to be written with as much excitement and passion as the last. By choosing to explore the world beyond the familiar, you give yourself the chance to write a chapter that is uniquely yours, one filled with new adventures, meaningful connections, and a vibrant sense of purpose. You get to live a life that is not just about maintaining the status quo, but about embracing the opportunities that are still out there, waiting for you to discover them. 7. Your children may not be ready for the responsibility. Many adult children, though they love their parents dearly, are simply not emotionally or practically prepared to take on the responsibility of caring for an aging parent who lives nearby. This shift in roles from child to caregiver can be overwhelming, especially when it comes at a time when they're already juggling demanding careers, raising their own families, and managing the countless stresses of adult life. What might seem like a good idea, moving closer for support and companionship, can quickly become a heavy burden that neither you nor your children were fully prepared for. One poignant story I came across highlights this all too well. A woman shared her experience on a forum, explaining how her mother moved close by after her father passed away. Initially, it seemed like the perfect solution. Her mother would have someone nearby for emotional support and assistance, and the daughter would feel better knowing her mother was close. But soon, the reality of the situation became clear. The woman admitted, "It seemed like a good idea at first, but then I realized I wasn't ready for this kind of responsibility. I'm trying to balance work and raising my kids, and now I'm also helping my mom more than I ever thought I would. It's caused stress in my marriage, and sometimes I just feel overwhelmed." Can you imagine the emotional toll that must take on her? Feeling pulled in so many directions, trying to meet everyone's needs while neglecting her own. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. This situation is far more common than we might think. Many adult children are still trying to navigate their own lives, and the sudden addition of caregiving responsibilities, whether it's physical, emotional, or even just being constantly available, can push them to their limits. It's not that they don't want to help or that they don't love you. It's just that the timing may be all wrong. In their minds, they may have anticipated helping you one day, but one day often seems far off, something to be dealt with in the distant future. When that responsibility arrives earlier than expected, it can feel like an emotional and practical tidal wave, disrupting the delicate balance of their lives. The pressure on them can manifest in many ways: strained relationships with their spouses, stress at work, and even a sense of guilt for feeling overwhelmed by the situation. They may start to feel resentful, not towards you but towards the circumstances, as they struggle to meet the demands of their own lives while also being there for you. And the guilt that accompanies these feelings, guilt for not being able to do more, guilt for feeling frustrated or exhausted, can become overwhelming. It's a complicated emotional landscape, one where love, guilt, responsibility, and frustration are all intertwined, leaving both parent and child feeling emotionally drained. This is why maintaining some distance can be a blessing, both for you and for your children. When you live further apart, your children are given the emotional and mental space to prepare for the eventuality of caring for you, but they can do so on their terms when they're truly ready. The weight of caregiving doesn't fall on them suddenly or prematurely, and they aren't forced into a role they haven't fully come to terms with. This space allows them to mentally and emotionally adjust to the idea of helping you one day, rather than feeling like they've been thrust into the role without warning. In turn, you also benefit from this distance. By living independently and managing your own life for as long as possible, you give yourself the freedom to enjoy your autonomy without feeling like you're becoming an immediate burden on your children. You allow them to continue building their careers, raising their children, and living their lives without the added pressure of being responsible for their well-being daily. And when the time comes that you do need their help, it can be offered out of genuine willingness rather than a sense of obligation or overwhelm. It's not that your children won't be there for you, they will. But by allowing them the time and space to come to that role naturally, you create a healthier dynamic, one that is built on mutual respect and understanding, rather than on premature responsibility. They'll be better prepared, both emotionally and practically, to help you when the time comes. And the transition will feel smoother for everyone involved. Instead of being caught off guard, they'll have had the time to adjust, to have conversations with you about what kind of support you need, and to prepare themselves for this new chapter in your relationship. When caregiving roles evolve naturally, without the pressure of proximity, the relationship between parent and child can remain strong and positive. The emotional strain is reduced, and the visits and interactions you share with your children feel less like obligations and more like genuine, cherished moments. You maintain your independence for as long as possible, and they maintain their ability to live their lives without feeling overwhelmed or unprepared. Ultimately, this isn't just about logistics, it's about preserving the emotional bond between you and your children. Living too close, too soon can sometimes erode that bond, as both parties struggle with feelings of guilt, obligation, and pressure. But when you give each other the space to grow into these new roles at your own pace, the relationship can thrive. There's less resentment, less guilt, and more understanding. Your children will feel proud to support you when you need it, and you'll meet it, and you'll feel proud of the life you've lived independently until that moment comes. In the end, it's about allowing your children the freedom to be fully present when the time comes for them to take on the responsibility of helping you. It's about ensuring that the role of caregiver, when it's needed, is one they step into willingly, rather than feeling forced into it prematurely. And in doing so, you preserve the love, respect, and emotional connection that makes your relationship with them so special. 8. You deserve to focus on yourself. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that being near your children is the best way to find meaning in your later years. After all, you've spent decades raising them, nurturing them, and helping them build their own lives. But now, it's time to ask yourself, what about you? What do you truly want from this stage of life? You've worked hard, made countless sacrifices, and poured your energy into the well-being of others. Now, it's finally your time to focus on your own needs, your passions, and your desires. For so many people, retirement is seen as the natural moment to move closer to family and to continue being a part of their children's lives. But have you considered that this might also be your time to rediscover who you are outside of the roles of parent, partner, and caregiver? This is a unique moment in your life where you have the freedom to make decisions purely for yourself. You have the chance to rekindle old dreams, explore new hobbies, and live a life that reflects your passions rather than everyone else's needs. One heartwarming story that comes to mind is from a woman who, after retiring, decided to move to a small beach town all by herself. For years, she had been everything to everyone, raising her kids, caring for her husband, and later even looking after her aging parents. It was a life full of love and purpose, but also one where her own needs were often put on hold. She explained, "I spent my whole life taking care of everyone, my kids, my husband, even my aging parents. I thought my next step would be to move closer to my kids, but I realized I had spent enough of my life being what other people needed. I found a place by the ocean, and for the first time in decades, I'm doing things for myself. My kids come to visit, but they're seeing a mom who's happy and fulfilled. It's a gift I never expected to give them. Her story is so touching because it highlights a powerful truth. When you focus on your happiness, it not only enriches your life, but also positively impacts your relationship with your children. By taking the time to prioritize your joy, you show them what it looks like to live a fulfilling life in your later years. Rather than being the parent who is always sacrificing and giving, you become the parent who is thriving and who has something vibrant and joyful to share. When your children visit, they don't just see the person who raised them, they see a whole, fulfilled individual who is embracing this stage of life with open arms. These years are your opportunity to finally indulge in the things you've always wanted to do but may never have had the time for. Whether it's traveling to places you've always dreamed of visiting, taking up hobbies you've long neglected, or simply enjoying peaceful, quiet time for yourself. This is your moment. This chapter is about you. There's so much freedom that comes with this stage of life, freedom from the demands of work, the pressures of raising a family, and the expectations of others. You get to decide how you want to spend your days, where you want to live, and what experiences you want to pursue. Focusing on yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. For years, you've given so much of yourself to others, but now it's time to nurture your dreams. Imagine waking up each day with the excitement of doing things that bring you joy, whether that's taking long walks on the beach, learning a new skill like painting or photography, or even just savoring the quiet pleasure of a good book. You're not just filling your days, you're enriching your soul. This focus on personal growth and happiness also benefits your relationship with your children. When you're fulfilled and content, it changes the dynamic. Your children will see you as someone who is living fully, not as someone dependent on them for companionship or purpose. There's a beautiful balance that happens when you maintain your independence while still being connected to your family. You create space for your children to live their own lives without feeling the pressure to constantly check in on you or worry that you're lonely. Instead, they'll look forward to visiting and sharing in the joy of your life's adventures. Think about how much more meaningful your time with your children can be when you're coming from a place of fulfillment. Rather than feeling like you're waiting around for them to visit or call, you'll have your own stories to share, tales of the new experiences you've had, the interesting people you've met, or the latest hobby that's captured your interest. The conversation becomes one of mutual excitement and growth, rather than one of dependence or routine. You get to offer them not just love, but inspiration, showing them that life continues to be rich and full, even in the later years. Your children want to see you happy. They want to know that you're living your best life, just as you've always wanted that for them. By choosing to focus on your happiness, you're giving them a gift, a parent who is at peace, fulfilled, and living life to the fullest. This doesn't mean you won't still be there for them when they need you. It simply means that you're also there for yourself, and that balance is what leads to deeper, healthier relationships. So, as you look forward to your retirement years, remember that this time is yours. You've earned it. It's your opportunity to rediscover yourself, to reignite old passions, and to explore new horizons. Whether it's through travel, new hobbies, or simply enjoying the quiet moments that come with having no obligations, your happiness should be the priority. This chapter of life is all about embracing your dreams, finding joy in the things that matter most to you, and living each day with a sense of freedom and purpose. In doing so, you'll not only enrich your own life, but also strengthen the bond you share with your children. Because when you're happy, everyone benefits. 9. Your children's parenting choices may frustrate you. When you move close to your children, you naturally become more involved in their daily lives. And while this sounds like a wonderful opportunity for deeper connection, it often comes with an unexpected source of tension: their parenting choices. Whether it's how they discipline their children, what they feed them, or the values they're instilling, you may find yourself struggling with decisions that are different from how you raised your children. What starts as simple observations can quickly turn into moments of frustration or even conflict, especially when your opinions don't align. A grandmother once shared her experience on an online forum, and her story is one that many can relate to. She explained, "I never realized how much I'd struggle with my daughter's way of parenting until I lived nearby. I want to help, but we're constantly butting heads over small things like how much TV they let the kids watch or how they handle tantrums. It's exhausting, and I sometimes regret moving so close." Her words reflect the exhaustion that comes from being near her grandchildren's day-to-day lives, but feeling unable to accept the parenting methods her daughter has chosen. This isn't about love or care. It's about the very natural generational differences in how children are raised. When you're so close, these differences are magnified, and it can feel impossible not to give advice, even when it's not wanted. Another woman echoed similar feelings, sharing, "I moved closer to my daughter thinking we'd spend more time together, but we ended up clashing over how she raises her kids. I grew up in a different time, and it's hard not to give advice, even when it's not wanted. We've had arguments over things like screen time and discipline, and now I feel like I'm tiptoeing around her." This story reveals another layer of complexity, feeling like you have to tiptoe around your child because you don't want to overstep. The relationship that was once easy and natural starts to feel strained as you try to navigate the fine line between offering support and becoming critical. These situations arise because parenting styles change with each generation, and what worked when you were raising your children may not be the approach your children are taking with theirs. Whether it's more lenient discipline, more exposure to technology, or different approaches to education, these are choices that your children, as parents, need to make on their own. But when you live nearby, it can be hard to avoid noticing every little decision, and when those decisions clash with your values, frustration builds. Living at a distance, however, creates a buffer that can prevent these clashes from happening so frequently. You're not as involved in the day-to-day decisions, so you're less likely to feel the need to comment or intervene. It gives your children the space to parent in their way without feeling like they're under constant scrutiny. When you visit, the focus is on spending quality time together, rather than becoming entangled in disagreements over parenting methods. This physical distance also fosters emotional space for acceptance. When you don't see every moment of your grandchildren's lives, it becomes easier to let go of the small things that might otherwise irritate you. You start to trust that your children are doing their best, even if their methods differ from yours. Instead of feeling the urge to step in, you can appreciate that your role has shifted from being the parent who calls the shots to being the grandparent who offers love and support from a respectful distance. Maintaining that space is essential for preserving the respect that underpins a positive relationship. It ensures that your role as a parent doesn't shift into one of constant critique or unsolicited advice, which can cause resentment on both sides. Your children need to feel confident in their parenting choices, and they can only do that when they aren't feeling judged or second-guessed. When you live further away, your relationship becomes less about managing daily decisions and more about enjoying the time you spend together. The emotional and physical distance helps keep the peace, allowing everyone to feel respected in their roles. The key here is recognizing that your children, like you once did, need the freedom to make their own parenting decisions that are reflective of their values, the times they're living in, and the needs of their children. They're learning as they go, just like you did. And just like you, they'll make mistakes and learn from them. By giving them the space to do this without interference, you not only support their growth as parents, but also strengthen the bond you share. When you're not living so close, it's easier to step back and appreciate the bigger picture. You might not agree with every choice they make, but that's part of the natural evolution of parent-child relationships. What's most important is that your relationship remains positive, respectful, and loving. By maintaining a healthy distance, you ensure that your role as a grandparent is one of joy and support, not one of friction or conflict. This distance also allows you to become a source of wisdom and guidance when they seek it. Instead of offering advice at every turn, you can let them come to you when they truly need your insight. When advice is given in this way, it's more likely to be received with gratitude rather than resistance. Your children will come to value your perspective, but they won't feel suffocated by it. In the end, living at a distance allows for a healthier, more balanced relationship. You get to enjoy the joys of being a grandparent without feeling the stress of being involved in every decision. Your children get to raise their kids in a way that feels right to them without feeling like they're constantly being judged. It's a dynamic that allows for more peace, more acceptance, and a stronger bond between generations. And ultimately, that's what every family needs: a foundation of love, respect, and trust that stands the test of time, no matter the differences in how each generation chooses to raise their children. 10. Proximity can lead to overstepping boundaries. When you choose to live nearby, the initial excitement of being closer to family can quickly evolve into a complex dynamic where maintaining healthy boundaries becomes increasingly difficult. What starts as well-meaning visits and offers of help can easily transform into uninvited pop-ins, unspoken expectations for frequent interaction, and a sense of being overly involved in their daily lives. This can unintentionally create pressure on your children to constantly accommodate your needs, leading to emotional exhaustion for everyone involved. One woman's experience illustrates this struggle perfectly. She shared, "I love my mom, but after she moved nearby, I started to feel like I was constantly on call. She dropped by unexpectedly, and while she just wanted to chat, I felt like I had no privacy or space. I started to resent her, and I know she felt hurt by my pulling away. Her words capture the heartache that can emerge when boundaries blur, even when the intention is simply to connect. What was once a relationship built on love and respect can shift into one marked by feelings of suffocation and resentment. This can leave both parent and child feeling frustrated and misunderstood, damaging the very bond they sought to strengthen. It's crucial to recognize that maintaining boundaries is essential for both parties to preserve a sense of autonomy and mutual respect. When boundaries are respected, both parents and children can engage in their own lives without feeling the weight of obligation or intrusion. Living further apart naturally enforces these boundaries, allowing your children to manage their family life while giving you the space to enjoy yours. Regular, planned visits can become cherished moments rather than obligatory encounters. When you're not dropping by unannounced, each visit becomes a special occasion, filled with excitement and anticipation. Your children are more likely to appreciate the time spent together when it's not overshadowed by the pressure of constant contact. Instead of feeling like they have to accommodate you daily, they can look forward to spending quality time together without the underlying tension that can arise from proximity. Moreover, maintaining boundaries allows you to continue nurturing your interests and friendships. When you live independently, you have the freedom to explore activities and socialize without feeling the need to check in with your children constantly. This autonomy fosters a sense of fulfillment and happiness in your own life, which ultimately benefits your relationship with them. When you give your children the space they need, you allow them to thrive in their own lives too. They can focus on their careers, their children, and their personal goals without the pressure of feeling like they must be available to you at all the times. This kind of balance is vital for a healthy parent-child relationship where both sides feel respected and valued. In the end, creating healthy boundaries is about ensuring that love doesn't become a burden. It's about finding a way to support each other without overstepping into territory that feels intrusive. By living at a distance, you provide both yourself and your children the opportunity to grow as individuals while still enjoying the benefits of a close relationship. It's a delicate balance, but one that fosters a healthier, happier family dynamic where everyone can flourish in their way. 11. The grandparent role can be overwhelming. Being close to your grandchildren is often portrayed as one of the greatest joys of aging, and indeed, it can be a heartwarming experience filled with laughter and love. However, for many, this proximity can also become unexpectedly overwhelming. When you live nearby, there's frequently an unspoken expectation that you'll be heavily involved in your grandchildren's daily lives, whether that means babysitting, picking them up from school, or simply spending large amounts of time with them. While these moments can be fulfilling and joyful, the constant demands of being involved can wear you down over time, especially if you feel obligated to help out even when you prefer to focus on your own needs and interests. One grandfather's story illustrates this point all too well. He shared, "I moved closer to my daughter thinking I'd enjoy more time with my grandkids. I love them dearly, but now I find myself watching them almost every day, and it's exhausting. I'm retired, but I feel like I've taken on a new job. I don't know how to say no without causing tension, but I miss my free time." His heartfelt admission speaks volumes about the emotional toll that can come with being so involved. What was supposed to be a joyful opportunity to bond with his grandchildren has transformed into a demanding role that has left him feeling drained and longing for the freedom he once enjoyed. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. This situation often leads to a sense of obligation that can overshadow the joy of grandparenthood. The pressure to be present and helpful can create a feeling of resentment not towards your grandchildren, but towards the circumstances that have made it feel like there's no room for your own space or interests. It's vital to acknowledge that while you want to be there for your family, you also deserve to prioritize your well-being. Living at a distance allows you to set those boundaries more easily. You can still be an involved grandparent attending special events, spending quality time during planned visits, but on your terms. This means that when you do spend time with your grandchildren, it's joyful and meaningful rather than a source of stress or obligation. You can enjoy those moments without feeling overwhelmed by the responsibilities that proximity can sometimes impose. It's important to recognize that it's not easy to admit, but living too close to your children in old age may not always be the dream scenario you envisioned. The reality can lead to feelings of being a burden, a loss of independence, strained relationships, and even isolation. Your best life may lie in maintaining a bit of distance, both physically and emotionally, while still nurturing those connections that are so vital. This distance doesn't mean you're abandoning your family or distancing yourself emotionally. Instead, it's about giving yourself the freedom to live your best life while allowing your children to do the same. It's about finding balance, staying close in spirit while allowing space for both you and your children to thrive independently. Your golden years should be about self-fulfillment, rediscovering your identity, and pursuing interests that go beyond familial obligations. Trust me when I say that your family will appreciate you more when they see you thriving and living a life full of purpose. The joy you cultivate in your own life will resonate with them, creating a positive atmosphere where they can also feel encouraged to live fully. The space you create, both physical and emotional, can lead to stronger bonds and healthier relationships. When visits are planned, they become cherished moments filled with laughter and love rather than routine obligations. You'll find that you have more energy and enthusiasm to share with your grandchildren, and that will deepen your connection with them. In the end, it's all about cultivating a life that nourishes both you and your family. By prioritizing your well-being and creating healthy boundaries, you set the stage for a fulfilling life, one where you can enjoy your role as a grandparent without feeling overwhelmed, and where your family can thrive alongside you. Remember, it's perfectly okay to focus on yourself and your happiness. After all, a fulfilled grandparent can bring so much joy and positivity into the family dynamic, creating a legacy of love, respect, and strength for generations to come. Thank you for joining me today as we explored the many facets of living close to family in your later years. We've discussed the challenges of feeling like a burden, the potential for strained relationships, the risk of isolation, and how proximity can sometimes lead to overstepping boundaries. As we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. What have you learned from this discussion? Please take a moment to share one key takeaway that you plan to bring into your own life in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please leave your comment, And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insightful content. Your support means the world to us, and together we can foster meaningful conversations about navigating life's challenges. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves.